Welcome to today's devotional message. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still silence. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more souls who need God's comfort. Comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's begin, and let His Word breathe new life into yours. You sit by the window, the afternoon light fading, and the silence in the room feels heavy. Not just quiet, but the kind of silence that feels like an unanswered question hanging in the air. You've prayed. You've laid it all out before God. The longing in your heart that feels like a raw, open wound. The fear gnawing at your edges like relentless desert winds. The specific need that feels so urgent, it burns like a consuming fire. You waited. You listened, straining your spiritual ears for the slightest whisper, the faintest sign, but the only response you've perceived is silence. Maybe you found yourself in this season. The dreams feel deferred, like withered buds on a barren branch. The path ahead is shrouded in mist so thick you can't see the next step. The breakthrough you desperately need seems perpetually just out of reach, like a mountain peak obscured by clouds. You look at others whose prayers seem answered with swift clarity, their lives unfolding with apparent ease, and a quiet whisper of doubt asks, "Does He even hear me? Has He forgotten the cries of my heart, the tears I've shed in the dark?" This isn't just a fleeting moment of questioning. It's a deep soul weariness that many who walk with God eventually encounter. It's the wilderness place where faith feels less like soaring on eagle's wings and more like a slow, often painful, step-by-step journey through rocky terrain. Every forward movement, a battle against the urge to collapse. It's where you grapple with the raw honesty of your walk, acknowledging the disappointment that settles deep in your bones, the confusion that clouds your mind, the sheer weariness of holding on to hope when the evidence seems non-existent, when the well feels dry and the promised land feels impossibly far. The silence can feel like rejection, like a closed door in the face of your earnest plea. But beloved, this message is for you, right here, in the quiet. This is not a sign of God's absence, but often a sign that He is doing a work too deep, too foundational, and too sacred to be rushed or easily perceived. He has not forgotten you. He hears the cries you can't even voice aloud, the prayers whispered in the secret place of your heart that no one else knows. And the season of waiting, though painful and often feels like walking through a valley of shadows, is pregnant with purpose. It is here, in the quiet, where your roots are invited to grow deeper into the unseen reality of His unfailing love and perfect timing. It is in the silence that God often speaks loudest, not always in words, but in the strengthening of your spirit, the refining of your character, the unearthing of reserves you didn't know you had. The silence is an answer, a sacred pause where God works in ways that defy human understanding. Lean in. He's here. This is where we learn that trusting God always doesn't mean trusting Him only when we hear Him clearly, but trusting Him especially in the pause, in the quiet, in the mystery of His unseen hand. It is in this quiet stillness that the mustard seed of faith is not just planted, but begins the hidden, underground work of growth that will eventually burst forth into something miraculous. Even in the silence, the shepherd leads. Even in the darkness, the lamp is being filled. Even in the waiting, The foundation is being built. Lean into the stillness and discover the peace that passes understanding, the quiet strength that comes not from knowing the answer, but from knowing the one who holds it. You stand on the shore, watching the horizon. The ship you're waiting for isn't there. Not today, not yesterday, not any day this week, or this month, or perhaps this year. This is the feeling of waiting, the deep anticipation mixed with the sharp ache of absence, a hollow space where your hope resides, visible only to you. It's the quiet hum of unanswered prayer, the silent ticking of a clock counting down to an outcome that remains stubbornly out of sight. Your heart holds the image of the promised vessel, but your eyes see only empty sea and endless sky. In the ancient texts, we find stories etched with the same longing. Abraham, a man called by God, waited not days, not weeks, but decades for the son God promised him. Can you imagine that kind of waiting? Year after year, watching the seasons turn, seeing others' families grow, holding onto a promise that felt increasingly impossible with every sunrise. Every passing year marking another step further from youthful possibility. Sarah's body grew old, her womb barren, a visible contradiction to the divine words spoken years before. It wasn't just a physical weight for them. It was an emotional and spiritual burden, carrying the weight of what was promised but not yet seen, a promise that defied the natural order. This season of waiting, this stretch of horizon where your ship hasn't appeared, is a fierce battleground for your faith. Doubt whispers its insidious lies into the quiet spaces of your heart. It's not going to happen. The promise was for someone else. You misunderstood God. You're not worthy of such a blessing. This silence is your answer. These whispers are relentless, tapping at the window of your soul like a persistent storm trying to find a way in. They prey on your vulnerability, on the very real evidence of what isn't there. But the profound, challenging truth is that God often does His most significant work in the invisible spaces, in the silence, in the waiting. While you wait, seemingly stagnant, feeling unproductive or forgotten, He might be rearranging mountains you can't see, preparing the path for your ship to finally arrive. He might be refining you, preparing you for a future you can't yet comprehend, or deepening your dependence on Him in a way that only this kind of stripped-down vulnerability can achieve. The waiting isn't empty. It's often full of unseen divine activity. It is in the wilderness of waiting that the soul learns its deepest lessons of surrender and trust. Consider the challenging words of Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This isn't just a nice verse. It's a blueprint for navigating the unseen. Faith provides the substance to your hope, making real in your heart what is not yet real in your circumstances. It offers the evidence of things unseen, not evidence based on your visible reality, but evidence based on the unseen character and faithfulness of God Himself. Are you allowing the unseen evidence of God's proven character, His past faithfulness, His unchanging nature, to outweigh the visible lack of your desired outcome? Are you looking past the empty horizon to the one who holds the oceans in His hands, trusting that the author of the story knows exactly when your ship is meant to come in? Your shoulders ache, not just from the day's burdens, but from carrying a weight your soul was never meant to bear alone. You've been running on empty for what feels like an eternity. The reserves you thought were there are depleted. The well you've been drawing from has gone dry. You've poured out your heart in fervent prayers, emptied your energy into striving, tried to muster hope from the very depths of weariness, and still, the reservoir isn't refilled. It feels like walking through a desert that stretches endlessly before you. Endless sand, shifting and uncertain underfoot, a scorching sun overhead beating down with relentless intensity, and a desperate, gnawing thirst for refreshment that nothing seems to quench. You look out at the shimmering mirage on the horizon, knowing it's not real, but the longing for water is so fierce you almost believe it anyway. This is the landscape of a soul parched, a spirit fainting. King David knew this feeling intimately. He wasn't always surrounded by victory or sitting comfortably on his throne. His life was often a series of exile, pursuit, and intense emotional and spiritual struggle. He cried out in Psalm 63:1, his voice echoing across the barren land, "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water." David's experiences were marked by profound seasons of waiting for God's promise of the throne to be fulfilled while hiding in caves, waiting for deliverance from enemies who sought his life, waiting for forgiveness and restoration after his own devastating sin. Each waiting period, each trial, exposed the deep dependency beneath the surface of his strength. He learned in those desolate places that the deepest thirst isn't for circumstances to change, but for the presence of God Himself. This spiritual drought isn't merely an absence. It is, paradoxically, a powerful presence. It is a stripping away of lesser comforts, a fading of temporary fixes, forcing us to confront the true source of our longing. Are you trying to quench this deep thirst with fleeting things, scrolling through endless feeds, chasing the next accomplishment, drowning the quiet ache with busyness, seeking validation in temporary relationships, or finding momentary escape in distractions? These are like sips of salt water in the desert. They may offer a brief illusion of relief, but ultimately they only increase the thirst, leaving your soul even more parched than before. This season of dryness isn't meant to break you, but to refine you, to burn away the idols of self-sufficiency and external validation, and to clarify the singular, fundamental longing that lies at the core of your being. It's meant to teach you the profound, life-altering truth that God Himself is your ultimate supply, the living water your soul truly craves. He is the well that never runs dry, the river whose streams make glad the city of God. The dryness you feel is not a sign of His absence, but often an invitation to seek Him in a deeper, more desperate way, revealing a need only He can meet. It's in the wilderness that the manna falls. It's from the rock that the water flows. God meets our deepest needs, not just in the fertile valleys, but in the arid lands where we are most aware of our desperate dependency. He promises to satisfy the thirsty soul and fill the hungry soul with good things. Psalm 107:9. This isn't a promise for a future paradise alone, but a promise for today, for this moment of aching need. He is not asking you to generate your own water, but to come to the source. He is not asking for strength, but for surrender to His ability to replenish you. Where are you seeking refreshment today, right now, in this season of feeling parched? Allow this challenging season, this waiting period, this feeling of emptiness to push you not towards despair, but deeper into the inexhaustible well of God's presence. His love is the rain your soul desperately needs. His peace is the oasis in your desert. His presence is the living water that truly satisfies. You sit in the quiet ache of waiting. The world outside rushes past your window, a blur of activity and progress. On social media, it seems everyone else is celebrating milestones, new jobs, relationships blooming, goals achieved, dreams coming true. And here you are, in this season of stillness, where the primary event feels like the slow tick-tock of the clock. You prayed. You sought counsel. You felt a stirring, maybe even received a promise. But still, silence, maybe even regression. The prayer you whispered with such conviction feels lost in the echoes of your own anxiety, a fragile hope drowned out by the noise of inaction. You look around at your life and see not the vibrant colors of progress, but the muted tones of patience, not the upward climb of growth, but the flat, quiet landscape of just waiting. It feels unproductive, frustrating, perhaps even deeply painful. This season of stillness, this wilderness you find yourself navigating, can feel like a spiritual drought, a barren landscape where nothing seems to grow except the weeds of doubt and discouragement. The fear whispers insidious questions. Is this wasted time? Am I being forgotten? Am I falling behind while life passes me by? God isn't working. Doubt settles heavy on your shoulders, a cloak woven from unanswered questions and stagnant seasons, threatening to suffocate your faith. But what if this isn't a season of God's absence, but a season of His hidden, intricate work? What if the silence isn't indifference, but the focused concentration of a master craftsman? Imagine a vast, divine kitchen filled with the subtle hum of unseen activity, the aroma of ingredients mingling, the gentle heat of ovens doing their work. God, the master chef of your soul and your circumstances, is preparing a magnificent feast. Your future, your purpose, the beautiful tapestry of the life He designed for you. In this celestial kitchen, some ingredients require long, patient marination in the cool darkness, allowing flavors to meld, tough parts to tenderize, essence to deepen over time. Others need the slow, steady heat of simmering over a carefully controlled flame, breaking down resistance, softening textures, drawing out a rich, complex essence. Still others are being meticulously prepped for intricate assembly, delicate garnishes, or structural elements requiring precise work done just before the final presentation. You, standing outside, might not see all these steps happening simultaneously. You don't witness the quiet process of marination or the patient simmering over a low flame. You only see, perhaps, the raw ingredients sitting idle, or worse, the empty counter where nothing seems to be moving at all. But God is there, in His kitchen, meticulously preparing, measuring, mixing, and applying heat with divine intention. Your life in this season of waiting is often like that hidden kitchen. God is preparing something beautiful, something complete, but it requires time. Time for ingredients to blend, for flavors to deepen, for every element to be ready at the perfect moment. It's a work happening behind closed doors, away from the spotlight, in the quiet corners of your soul and the unseen circumstances that surround you. This is not a pause in God's activity. It is a particular phase of His activity, often the most critical for the final outcome. Think about Joseph. His incredible story is perhaps the most vivid illustration of this divine preparation kitchen. Thrown into a literal pit by his own brothers, symbolizing the depths of despair and betrayal. Sold into slavery in a foreign land, thrust into unfamiliar territory, learning a new culture and language, navigating complex social dynamics, unjustly accused and forgotten in a dark, damp prison cell, facing isolation, despair, and the death of worldly hope. His entire journey, spanning years of hardship and obscurity, was a long, grueling preparation for the monumental role God intended him for, saving not only his own family, but entire nations from famine. Was the pit wasted time? No, it was where he learned absolute dependence when human help was gone. Was slavery just a painful detour? No, it was where he learned administration, leadership, and integrity under pressure in Potiphar's household. Was the prison a dead end? No, it was the place he learned patience, humility, interpreted dreams, and demonstrated faithfulness, even when forgotten by men, positioning him for his sudden elevation. In the eyes of the world, these were disasters. In the eyes of his despair, they were punishments. But in God's kitchen, they were essential, non-negotiable steps in the divine recipe. He wasn't just enduring, he was learning resilience forged in betrayal, administration skills honed in a foreign land, forgiveness refined in the crucible of profound injustice, and unwavering dependence on God in the darkest, most powerless places imaginable. The wilderness of his trials taught him wisdom, empathy, and strength that the palace never could instill. The isolation of the prison cell became a classroom for discerning divine messages and trusting a timeline far beyond his own control. Every hardship was an ingredient added to the pot, deepening the flavor, building the character, and preparing the man God was shaping for global impact. This season you're in, feeling stuck or unproductive? It is not wasted time in God's economy. It is divine preparation time. God is actively equipping you, refining you like precious metal in the fire of waiting, teaching you profound lessons you can only learn here in the wilderness of uncertainty or the quiet confinement of what feels like delay. He's developing character that can withstand the weight of future blessings and responsibilities, building resilience that will see you through even greater storms, and cultivating a deeper, more intimate understanding of His unwavering faithfulness that you will desperately need for the next, more public season. The emptiness you feel may be God clearing space, emptying your hands of reliance on your own capabilities so He can fill them with something new, something stronger, something more aligned with His ultimate design and powered by His Spirit. Maybe the time you feel weakest, most vulnerable, is precisely when God is building the deepest, most unshakable strength within your spirit. Perhaps the season of least visible progress in your external life is the season of most vital, transformative internal growth and preparation. The hands that feel empty, with nothing significant to do by the world's standards, are being prepared and strengthened to hold the abundance, the responsibility, the blessing God is measuring out for His perfect time. It feels like delay, like a frustrating pause, but from God's perspective, it is purposeful design. It feels like stagnation, but it is divine preparation in motion. God is actively asking you, right now, what is He teaching you in this waiting? Look closely at your circumstances, your frustrations, your moments of unexpected peace. Are you learning patience you didn't know you needed? Is humility being etched into your character? Are you discovering a depth of dependence on Him only found when there's absolutely nothing else to cling to? Is your faith being purified, stripped of reliance on your own striving or worldly timelines, resting solely on His promise and His nature? Ask Him directly, in the quiet of your heart, to show you what He is building within you and around you during this quiet, hidden season. He sees the full recipe. He knows the perfect cooking time for every ingredient. You are not forgotten on a distant shelf. You are actively, meticulously being prepared in His divine kitchen. Trust the process, even when you cannot see the chef's hands at work. Believe that the God who orchestrates galaxies, who knows the number of hairs on your head, knows the precise moment you will be ready, and when that time arrives, everything will indeed be beautiful. As the ancient wisdom whispers, echoing through the ages, He makes everything beautiful in its time. Ecclesiastes 3:11. Trust His timing, trust His kitchen, trust His preparation. Your waiting is not empty. It is full of His purpose. You sit in the silence, waiting. The silence isn't empty to God, but it feels deafening to you. You've been pouring out your heart, asking for a breakthrough, for a sign, for movement, any movement. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, maybe even years, and from your perspective, nothing is changing. The circumstances remain stubbornly the same. The healing hasn't manifested. The relationship hasn't mended. The door hasn't opened. It feels like a barren season above ground, like a tree standing naked against the sky, exposed and vulnerable, with no visible fruit, no new leaves unfurling. You wonder if your faith is faulty, if you prayed wrong, if God has somehow overlooked your petition. The fear creeps in, the fear that this waiting means abandonment, that the stillness is disinterest. Anxiety whispers that you're wasting time, that hope is naive. Loss feels imminent because nothing you can see or measure is improving. Doubt sinks its claws deep, asking, is God even working here? But look closer, with eyes that see beyond the surface. Consider the mighty oak, a symbol of enduring strength. Its glory is the vast canopy, the solid trunk, the shade it offers. But its true resilience isn't just in what's visible. It's hidden beneath the earth, in a vast, intricate root system that often mirrors the tree's outward spread. Those roots are its anchor against the fiercest storms. They are its lifeline, drawing up the unseen nourishment vital for life and future fruitfulness. Your season of waiting, when nothing seems to be happening up top, is so often, profoundly, a season of significant root growth. God isn't idle when you're in this quiet, still period. He is the master gardener, tending to the unseen work beneath the surface of your life. He is establishing you, deepening your foundation, not in shifting circumstances or fleeting feelings, but in the bedrock of His unchanging truth and the unwavering character of the one who promised. This unseen work is vital. It is where true resilience is forged. You can't see these roots growing. You can't measure the faith, strengthening like soil compacting around them. But the work is real and utterly profound. It is a beautiful paradox. The season that feels most stagnant above ground is often the season of most dynamic growth beneath the surface. This speaks to a deep spiritual insight. God works in the depths of your being, in the hidden circumstances surrounding your situation, shaping you even when the visible landscape remains unchanged. He is building fortitude, that isn't rattled by delays, resilience that bends but does not break under pressure, and an unwavering faith that isn't dependent on the immediate gratification of visible answers, but on the unchanging nature of the one who promised. Do you trust this unseen work of the master gardener in your life? Jesus said, "I am the vine, you are the branches. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me." John 15:4. Abiding happens in the quiet, rooted place, connected to the life source, trusting that even when you see no fruit, the life is flowing, the roots are deepening, preparing you for the season of bearing. This waiting isn't a delay. It's a divine preparation. It's not abandonment. It's deep, intimate attention from the one who loves you enough to build your strength from the ground up. Rest in the unseen work. Trust the hidden growth. He is making you resilient for the storms and fruitful for the future. You find yourself standing still, surrounded by sameness. Day after day, the landscape doesn't change, and the horizon seems just as distant as it did yesterday and the day before that. This waiting feels less like a pause and more like a permanent state. Like the Israelites, you may feel you've been wandering through a wilderness season, disoriented, stripped bare, questioning if you'll ever reach that promised land you believed God showed you. 40 years for them. Days, weeks, maybe years for you. It feels like an eternity away from where you thought you should be. This isn't the picturesque path you envisioned. It's dusty, lonely, fraught with uncertainty. You wonder, silently or aloud, is this it? Is this where the story ends? But listen closely to the whisper carried on the desert wind. The wilderness in God's story is rarely the end. It wasn't for His chosen people, and it isn't meant to be for you. The journey of the Israelites through the wilderness, while born partly from their disobedience, became a necessary, transformative transition. It was God's refining space, a divine boot camp where the faith forged in slavery was tested and strengthened for freedom. They learned dependence on His daily provision, the manna appearing miraculously each morning, a tangible reminder that He sees their need every single day. They confronted their fears and unbelief under the watchful, patient gaze of their Father. This arduous path, the one that feels so endless to you now, was part of shaping them into a nation ready to inherit their promise. It was a crucible where character was forged, and a deep, visceral trust in God's moment-by-moment care was etched into their souls. This brings the quiet, profound insight that difficult seasons have divine purpose. God is not leading you aimlessly through this wilderness. He has a destination, a promised land for you. Maybe not the one you expected, but one perfectly aligned with His love and plan. And this path, however arduous, is part of getting you there, not just to the destination, but prepared and ready for it. What lessons are being learned in this stillness? What parts of your old self are being stripped away to make room for the new? Look for the daily manna in your life, the unexpected phone call, the small moment of peace, the truth in a scripture that speaks directly to your heart. These are signs of His care, His moment-by-moment provision in your wilderness. Deuteronomy 8:2 stands as a monument to this truth. The Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep His commands. Your wilderness is a test, yes, but it is also a classroom and a sanctuary where you learn the depth of His presence in your weakness. Lean into the learning. Look for the manna. Trust the guide. The wilderness is a path through, not a place to stay forever. You sit in the quiet room, the clock ticking louder than usual. Another day passes, perhaps another week, and the answer, the breakthrough, the change you've been longing for, hasn't arrived. There's a part of you that wants to do something, anything, to speed things up, to force the door open, to make the seeds you planted yesterday suddenly burst into bloom today. This is the wrestle, isn't it? The internal tug-of-war between trusting God's plan and wanting to seize the reins yourself. You feel the anxiety gnawing in your gut, whispering, if you don't push, nothing will happen. If you stop striving, you'll be left behind. But waiting teaches us a different way. It is a season designed not for frantic action, but for a sacred stillness. It's here, in the pause, that we learn to stop striving in our own finite strength and surrender to a rhythm that is entirely not our own. Imagine learning to dance, not to the hurried beat of your own fears, but to God's music. Sometimes the tempo is fast, full of vibrant energy and swift movement. Other times, it slows to a profound, almost unbearable adagio. And sometimes, there is a long, deep pause, a holding of breath, where it feels like nothing is happening at all. Yet in His grace, the rhythm is always in perfect tempo, perfectly orchestrated, even when we cannot discern the tune. Think of the farmer, James 5:7. He prepares the soil, sows the seed. He does his part, his diligent work. But then he waits. Patiently. He does not stand over the field, yelling at the earth to yield faster. He doesn't dig up the seeds daily to check their progress. He trusts the natural process, the unseen miracle happening beneath the surface, and waits for the appointed time of harvest. This isn't idleness. It's active waiting rooted in trust. This highlights a profound spiritual insight. Surrender is an action, and patience is the quiet, powerful tending of the soil of your soul, while God works in the unseen. Our impatience is often a glaring signpost, revealing our desperate desire to control the timeline, to force God's hand into our schedule, or to believe, foolishly, that our striving will somehow speed up His perfect plan. But God works according to His grace and His perfect timing, a timeline marked by divine wisdom, not by our anxiety or our self-imposed deadlines. His wait is not a no. Often it is a not yet, a season of preparation you cannot rush. What would it truly look like to surrender your timeline to God's today? To loosen the grip of your anxiety-driven control and offer it, palms open, to the one who holds all time in His hands? Practice the presence of God in the waiting. Don't just endure the pause. Inhabit it with Him. Breathe deeply. Release the tension in your shoulders, in your jaw, and whisper, as a sacred mantra against the noise of impatience, your timing is perfect. Let the truth of Psalm 46:10 settle deep within you. Be still and know that I am God. In the stillness, in the knowing, you begin to learn the rhythm of His grace, a dance of surrender that leads to peace, and not tightens in your stomach, a familiar, unwelcome guest. It arrives unannounced, usually when you're quiet, when the world slows down just enough for the what-ifs to rush in. You lie awake, tracing the same worn paths of worry in your mind. each thought a relentless drumbeat stealing sleep. The present moment feels distant, overshadowed by a future painted with shadows. This is the grip of anxiety, the natural enemy of waiting well. It whispers doubts about tomorrow, about provision, about safety, about control. It convinces you that holding tightly is the only way to keep from falling apart. You feel the tension radiating from your chest, the racing thoughts like wild horses you can't rein in. It feels heavy, suffocating. But there is an antidote, a powerful, ancient truth offered not as a platitude, but as a promise. The Bible speaks of the peace of God, a peace offered precisely for these moments of internal turmoil. Philippians 4:6-7 paints the picture. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. It's a roadmap out of the anxious spiral, a divine exchange program. Instead of wrestling with worry, you are invited to converse with the Creator of the cosmos. Instead of replaying fears, you are called to recall His faithfulness. This peace isn't the absence of storms, it's the ability to rest in the storm, anchored not by circumstance, but by Christ. It is a quiet confidence that surpasses logic, a stillness that defies the chaos outside and within. It is the gentle paradox where surrender brings strength and releasing control leads to profound peace. This peace doesn't depend on your understanding of how things will work out, but on your connection with the one who holds the beginning and the end. It is rooted in the spiritual insight that true security isn't found in managing outcomes, but in resting in the hands of the Almighty. You are invited in this very moment to trade your anxiety for His peace. It's not a one-time transaction, but a daily practice, a moment-by-moment turning. Lay down the heavy burdens at His feet, the specific worries, the undefined dread, the constant need to figure it all out. Bring your requests to Him, not just the big ones, but the small ones too, the whispered concerns only He hears. And crucially, practice gratitude in the waiting. Thank Him for the breath in your lungs, the lessons learned, the ways He has shown up before, and simply for who He is, unchanging, good, faithful. Allow this peace, this supernatural calm, to stand guard like a sentinel over your heart and mind today, protecting them from the relentless assault of worry in Christ Jesus. This guard isn't dependent on your strength, but on His presence. The calendar pages turn, each morning a fresh start that ends feeling much like the day before. You whisper the promise God gave you, maybe years ago, maybe just last month. It sounds hollow now, like a faint echo in a vast, empty room. The waiting stretches out like a desert road, shimmering with mirages of hope that dissipate as you draw near. It's in these long seasons that the promises begin to fade, losing their vibrant color, becoming distant echoes or theoretical concepts you hope are still true. Doubt creeps in, quiet at first, a tiny seed of anxiety whispering, "Did you hear Him right? Does He still remember you?" It's easy to lose sight of the words spoken over you when the silence is loud and the path ahead is unclear. The promise can feel distant, theoretical, or even forgotten amidst the pressing realities of your present struggle. This feeling of drift, of disconnection from God's spoken word over your life, is real. It's the wilderness where faith is tested. But there is a weapon against this present doubt, a powerful anchor for your soul. Remembering. Remembering not just that God spoke, but how He has always been. Remembering His track record of unwavering faithfulness. Think of the stories etched into the bedrock of Scripture. Noah, building an ark against all reason, holding on to a promise of salvation through floodwaters sealed by the vibrant arc of a rainbow covenant in the sky. God delivering Israel from the iron grip of Egypt, parting a sea, leading with fire by night and cloud by day. A nation born out of a promise kept through miraculous intervention against impossible odds. Even Jesus Himself, promising His return, a future hope anchoring believers across millennia, proving His words are not bound by time or circumstance. These aren't just ancient histories. They are living testimonies to the unchanging, unwavering character of a promise keeper, whose word is His bond. This is the spiritual insight that cuts through the fog of waiting, anchoring your faith in God's consistent nature. If He was faithful to Noah, faithful to Israel, faithful through Christ, then He is faithful now. His character remains the same, yesterday, today, and forever. Your current landscape of uncertainty, your unanswered prayer, the silence you perceive, none of it negates His flawless past performance or His unwavering future intentions for those who trust Him. The prophet Balaam, though hired to curse, could only speak truth inspired by God. God is not a human that He should lie, not a human being that He should change His mind. Has He said it, and will He not do it? Or has He spoken, and will He not fulfill it? Numbers 23:19. He cannot lie. He does not change His mind about His promises. What He has said, He will do. Now turn that gaze inward. In the tapestry of your own life, even in the small, quiet moments, where have you seen the distinct fingerprint of God's faithfulness? Maybe it was the unexpected provision just when the bills were due. Perhaps the flicker of peace in a moment of overwhelming anxiety. The friend who showed up right when you needed them most. The closed door that, in hindsight, protected you from something far worse. Spend time recalling these moments. Don't let them slip away like sand through your fingers. Write them down. Build an altar of remembrance in your heart, a cairn of stones marking the places where God showed up for you. Let the vivid memory of His past faithfulness, the concrete evidence of His track record in your life, fuel your hope for His future action. He hasn't forgotten you, just as He didn't forget Noah or Israel. The same God who acted then is the God holding your hand now, walking you through this wait. His promises aren't fading. They are waiting for the appointed time of their unfolding. Trust the character you know, even when the circumstances feel unknown. You sit in the silence, the air thick with the weight of unresolved prayers. Another year turns, another milestone passes. The question echoes, persistent and unwelcome. Who am I now? The mirror reflects not just a face, but the story you tell yourself, the story defined by what hasn't happened yet. You are the woman waiting for the ring. You are the man whose career stalled years ago. You are the one still battling the same old stronghold, whispering, "Will I ever break free?" The wait isn't just a pause. It feels like a descriptor. It clings to you like a damp garment, shaping your self-perception. You find yourself introducing yourself not by your passions or your spirit, but by your status. I'm still single. I'm just doing this until. I'm the one in the family who hasn't quite made it. The lack becomes an identity tag. a subtle, insidious thief stealing your confidence and clouding your vision. You measure your worth against an unseen timeline, a societal norm, or the seemingly effortless progress of others. Feelings of inadequacy bloom in this barren space. Failure feels like a permanent address, not a temporary setback. You feel overlooked, forgotten, a side character in your own unfolding narrative. This is the subtle danger of the waiting season, allowing the external circumstances to define the internal truth. You are not your relationship status. You are not your job title. You are not the current state of your bank account or the answer to that specific prayer you prayed last night. These are aspects of your journey, yes, but they are not the bedrock of who you are. The world, with its fleeting metrics of success and belonging, will try to tell you who you are based on what you have or what you lack. But God's truth sings a different song, a song of unwavering, unearned belonging. Your identity, beloved child of God, is rooted in Christ. It is a gift bestowed upon you the moment you placed your faith in Him, not something you earn or lose based on your current situation. Think of it. You are chosen, not because you were perfect or had it all figured out, but because He saw you and called your name. You are redeemed, bought with a price far beyond calculation, freed from the chains that once held you captive. You are called, not just to a task, but to a relationship, invited into the very heart of the Trinity. And you are deeply loved, a love so vast, so personal, it transcends all understanding and all earthly limitations. This is the vital, non-negotiable truth. Your worth is not in the waiting. It is in the one you are waiting with. The waiting season in God's economy does not diminish your worth or your purpose. It is simply a chapter, perhaps a challenging one, but never the whole story. He sees you, truly sees you, behind the perceived lack, beneath the brave face. He knows the ache in your heart, the quiet desperation that sometimes creeps in at midnight. And He delights in you, right where you are, in the raw, messy, beautiful reality of your present moment. It is a paradox. You feel empty in the wait, yet you are simultaneously full in Him. You feel forgotten by the world, yet intimately known by the Creator of the universe. He is not passive in this waiting. While you feel stuck, He is actively working in you. He is refining your character, deepening your dependence, revealing hidden strength you never knew you possessed. He is working through you, using your experiences, your empathy, your growth to touch lives you might not even realize. The wilderness isn't just a place of hardship. It's where God often speaks clearest, where provision appears in unexpected ways, where the core of who you are in Him is forged in the fire of delay. Like a seed buried in the earth, unseen and waiting, you are undergoing essential, life-giving growth beneath the surface. How are you allowing this season of waiting to twist your self-perception? Are you letting the unanswered prayer define your value? Are you measuring your progress against a human standard instead of the divine affirmation already spoken over you? There is power in speaking truth. Remind yourself daily, hourly if needed, of God's irrefutable declaration over you. Open His Word. Read 1 John 3:1 and let it soak into the dry places of your soul. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. Say it aloud. I am a child of God. That is who I am. My circumstances do not change this. Your identity is not found in the desires of your heart being fulfilled on your timeline, but in the eternal, unchanging truth of who you are to Him. Cling to this truth like a lamp in the darkness. Let it illuminate the path forward, reminding you that even in the deepest valley of the weight, you are seen, you are known, and you are irrevocably loved. This identity is your anchor, holding you firm when the waves of uncertainty threaten to pull you under. Trusting God always begins with trusting what He says about you. You sit in the silence, the air heavy with the unanswered question. You've prayed, you've pleaded, you've poured out your heart, asking God for direction, for a sign, for the breakthrough you feel you desperately need. But the heavens feel silent, and the season of waiting stretches on, feeling less like a pause and more like an indefinite hold. It's easy in this space to feel paralyzed, as if your life can't truly begin again until the thing you're waiting for arrives. You might feel like you're just treading water, marking time, perhaps even growing weary in your soul. The uncertainty feeds the fear that you're somehow missing God's timing, or that you're supposed to be doing something grand and obvious, and because it's not happening, you must be failing. This quiet fear whispers that your inactivity is the waiting, that you must remain still and passive until God acts first. But God's truth breathes a different reality into this stillness. Waiting on God is not passive idleness, it is active faith. Picture a sprinter before the race begins. They aren't lounging around, checking their watch. They are on the blocks, in position, muscles tensed, eyes fixed forward, breath controlled, every fiber of their being vibrating with readiness. They are intensely active in their waiting for the starting gun. This is active faith in the pause. It means continuing to live faithfully, right where you are. It means obeying the quiet promptings of the Holy Spirit, serving the people God has placed in your path, cultivating the spiritual disciplines that nourish your soul. Even when the big picture is unclear, it's about being found faithful in the present season, trusting implicitly that God is orchestrating the future season according to His perfect plan. This active obedience, this serving in the small, overlooked places, is not just filling time. It is a profound form of worship. It is preparation. It's like the wise bridesmaids in the parable who trimmed their lamps and had oil ready while they waited for the bridegroom, not because they knew the exact moment he would appear, but because they were faithful in the task given to them in the interim. When we focus on doing the good works God has already called us to, Ephesians 2:10 says He prepared these works in advance for us to walk in, our focus shifts dramatically. It moves from the gnawing feeling of what we lack, the breakthrough, the answer, the clear path, to the abundance of what we have been given and what we can actively give today. You are not waiting for permission to be useful or faithful. You are already commissioned. The wilderness wasn't a place of idleness for the Israelites. It was where they learned to depend on daily bread from heaven, where they saw God's presence in the cloud and fire, where they received the law. It was a place of active learning and purification while they waited to enter the promised land. Don't wait for the breakthrough, the change in circumstances, or the big sign to live fully for God. Your faithfulness in the small, hidden moments is seen by Him. It cultivates a depth of character and trust that the more comfortable seasons cannot. What is one small area where God is calling you to active obedience or simple service today, right where you are? It might be extending grace, offering a helping hand, choosing gratitude over complaint, or spending time in His Word. Begin there. Remember the promise. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Your active waiting is sowing seeds for a future harvest. The silence is heavy. Your heart aches with a specific kind of pain, the one that comes from a prayer unanswered, a hope deferred, a future unclear. You sit in the waiting room of life, perhaps, feeling the sterile chill of uncertainty. How can you even think about praising God when the very air you breathe feels thick with disappointment or confusion? It feels counterintuitive, almost impossible. Your spirit is weary, your questions louder than any potential melody. But the ancient pages of Scripture tell a different story. They are filled with the raw, honest cries of people who chose to lift their voices not after the storm passed, but in the eye of it. Consider Paul and Silas, bound, beaten, thrown into the inner prison in Philippi. Their feet were fastened in stocks, their bodies undoubtedly bruised and aching. By human standards, this was rock bottom. Comfort was a distant memory. Yet, around midnight, what did they do? They prayed, and they sang hymns loud enough for the other prisoners to hear. Their worship wasn't a result of comfort. It was an act of radical faith despite the crushing circumstances. It was a declaration that God was still sovereign, still worthy, even within prison walls. This is the profound spiritual insight. Worship in the midst of pain is a powerful act of defiance. It pushes back against the encroaching tide of doubt and despair. It refuses to let the immediate pain be the final word. It shifts your focus. Instead of fixating on the overwhelming mountain of your problem, worship turns your gaze upward, towards the greatness of the problem solver. It realigns your aching heart with God's eternal perspective, reminding you that He is still seated on the throne. He is still intricately weaving His purposes, even when your current thread seems tangled or broken. He is still in control, still trustworthy, and yes, still worthy of the highest praise, even in the lowest valley. Hebrews 13:15 calls us to continually offer to God a sacrifice of praise. Why a sacrifice? Because true worship, especially when it hurts, costs you something. It costs you the comfort of wallowing in despair. It costs you the indulgence of complaint. It costs you the natural human inclination to shut down. But what fruit does it bear? The fruit of lips that openly profess His name. It is the sweet, hard-won testimony that God is good, even when life isn't. Perhaps today, the grand, soaring hymns feel too heavy. Maybe your voice is hoarse with unshed tears. Can you offer just a whisper of praise? A single word, Jesus, help, trust. This sacrifice, small as it might feel, is precious in His sight. It's a lamp lit in your inner darkness, a quiet refusal to let the ache silence the truth of who He is. It is trusting God always, even when worshiping feels like the last thing you have the strength to do. Offer the broken pieces, the confused questions, the silent tears, and see how His presence meets you in that sacred space. The silence stretches, thick and heavy, pressing down on your chest like a physical weight. Waiting does this. It creates isolation, a sense of being adrift on a solitary sea, even when surrounded by others. You might trace the patterns on the window pane, feeling misunderstood, convinced no one could possibly grasp the specific ache in your heart, the quiet desperation of the unanswered prayer. Maybe you've even pulled back, hesitant to lay your vulnerability bare, fearing you'll be a burden or worse, judged for your struggle, for the crack in your faith's veneer. But look closer. Look at the very fabric of the divine design. God did not craft us to be solitary figures battling the wilderness alone. He wove us into a tapestry, strategically placing us within the vibrant, sometimes messy, sometimes gloriously strong body of Christ. It is here in community that the burdens meant to crush one person are shared among many. It is here that encouragement isn't just a nice idea, but a lifeline thrown in the storm. It is here that collective prayer doesn't just ascend, but seems to break through the very roof of impossibility. Think of the story, etched in faith's history, of the paralytic. He lay there, bound by his affliction, likely feeling unseen, unheard, maybe even forgotten in the crowds pressing around Jesus. But his friends, his friends, they didn't stand by and watch. They didn't offer platitudes from a distance. They carried him. They navigated obstacles, and when the way was blocked, they didn't give up. They found a new way in, tearing through a roof, because their faith, their shared conviction, demanded access to the healer. It was their faith together that led to the breakthrough, to the man standing, walking, praising God. This isn't just a nice story. It's a profound spiritual insight. You cannot wait alone. There is immeasurable strength to be found in locking arms with other believers. There is comfort in knowing you are not the only one who has walked through a similar valley. There is wisdom in hearing how another soul found their footing when the ground felt like it was crumbling. They are the hands that can support you when your knees feel weak, the voices that can echo God's truth when doubt is screaming in your ear, the hearts that can lift you up in prayer when your own words feel trapped in your throat. Who is that one person God has placed in your life? That safe harbor where you can quietly, gently, share the weight you are carrying today. Reach out, send the text, make the call, step out of the isolation, if only for a moment, and allow others to step into the burden with you. For in this sacred act of shared vulnerability, you are not just finding human comfort, you are fulfilling the very law of Christ himself. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Galatians 6:2. The heavy cloak of waiting doesn't disappear, but its weight is miraculously lessened when borne by more than one. Sometimes life feels like a ship caught in a tempest, tossed relentlessly by waves of circumstance. The wind howls like a chorus of anxieties, and the horizon is lost in a thick, impenetrable fog. You feel battered, vulnerable, dangerously close to being dashed against the unseen rocks of despair or doubt. In the midst of such a storm, whether violent or subtly disorienting, a ship desperately needs an anchor, something heavy, strong, and deeply rooted that can keep it from being swept away or destroyed. And for your soul, navigating the churning waters of uncertainty and waiting, hope is that anchor. Hebrews 6:19 paints this vivid picture, describing our hope in Christ as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. This isn't the fragile string of wishful thinking, easily snapped by the next gust of wind or the slightest shift in current. No, this is a steadfast certainty. Its grip is firm, its security absolute, because it's rooted not in our strength, but in the unshakable faithfulness of God himself. When you find yourself in that season of waiting for an answer to a prayer that feels lost to the wind, waiting for a breakthrough in a situation that seems impossible, waiting for healing, for clarity, for reconciliation, the waves of doubt, fear, and impatience can rise, higher and higher, threatening to capsize you entirely. But hope in God's promises, that is what holds you steady. It sinks down through the turbulent surface, past the chaos, finding its grip on the solid, unchanging character of God. This spiritual insight reframes hope for us. It's not merely passive optimism, hoping things will eventually get better while you drift aimlessly. It is an active choice, a decisive act of fixing your gaze, your mind, your heart on the one who is unchanging amidst the wildest, most unpredictable circumstances. It is the confident expectation, not of a specific outcome you've devised, but of the certainty that God is inherently good, that He is utterly faithful, and that, without fail, He will fulfill His loving purposes for your life, even when you cannot see the shore, even when the waiting feels eternal. So today, in the midst of your storm or your stillness, where is your anchor? Are you allowing the flimsy ropes of temporary fixes, fleeting feelings, or human reassurance to tether you? Or are you actively choosing to drop the spiritual anchor, holding on to the hope found in God's unwavering word? Choose, beloved soul, to hold fast to the hope that does not disappoint, because as Romans 5:5 promises, this hope cannot disappoint. Why? Because God's immeasurable, persistent love has been poured out into your heart through the Holy Spirit. Let that truth be the unyielding seabed where your soul's anchor finds its grip. Let hope keep you steady until the dawn breaks. The calendar page turns again, but your season hasn't changed. You stare at the date you'd circled in hope, the deadline you'd set in prayer, and the silence feels deafening. That gnawing feeling creeps in. Is God late? Did He miss the memo? Did He forget about you? You trace the lines in your palm, wondering if the divine timeline somehow got misfiled with your own fragile human one. The weight of unmet expectation presses down, heavy as a tombstone on a heart already weary from waiting. This feeling, this raw vulnerability exposed by delay, is ancient. Think of Martha, standing before the tomb of her brother Lazarus. 4 days he had been dead. 4 days since Jesus, the healer, the life himself, had been called. And He hadn't come. The words spill out, sharp with grief and bewildered faith. Lord, if You had been here, my brother would not have died. From Martha's vantage point, from the finite perspective bound by moments and breath, Jesus was not just late, He was too late. The window had closed. Hope had evaporated with the last breath. But Jesus' timing operates outside the narrow confines of our clocks and calendars. His arrival 4 days later was not a mistake. It was precisely when and how God's glory would be most fully revealed. His delay was not denial. It was preparation. Preparation for a miracle so undeniable, so profound, that it would shatter human understanding of death and resurrection, pointing directly to Him as the resurrection and the life. John 11 verse 4 tells us Jesus deliberately stayed where He was because of God's glory, so that the Son of God might be glorified through it. His purpose was greater than healing sickness. It was conquering death itself, not just for Lazarus, but as a sign for all who would believe. This is the crucial spiritual insight tucked within the waiting, like a hidden spring in the wilderness. God's timing is perfect because His perspective is eternal. He is sovereign over time itself. He holds the past, present, and future in His hands. Your perceived delay is often a sacred pause, a divine incubation period where deeper works are being done beneath the surface. Like a seed hidden in the dark earth, waiting feels unproductive, even dead, but it is precisely where transformation begins. Anxiety whispers, "He forgot." Doubt asks, "Was the promise even real?" But faith counters, "He is working all things out according to His perfect plan, in His perfect timing." His calendar is not yours. His delays are not denials. They are often preparations for a manifestation of His power and goodness that is far greater than you could have imagined with your limited vision. So quiet the restless heart. Release the grip on your anxiously constructed timeline. Surrender your calendar to the Creator of time itself. Trust that He is working everything out according to His perfect plan and in His perfect timing. As Ecclesiastes 3:11 promises, He has made everything beautiful in its time. The beauty is coming. The manifestation of His power is coming. It just might arrive in a way and at a time far beyond what you expected, precisely to reveal His glory, not yours. He is never late. He is perfectly timed. Rest in that truth. The sun dips low, casting long shadows across the path you've been walking for what feels like an eternity. Every step feels heavy, laden with the weight of unanswered prayers and dreams deferred. The weariness is a physical ache, settling deep into your bones. It's the kind of tired that sleep can't fix, born from the relentless press of time moving forward, while your situation feels frozen, stuck in a season of waiting. You've pushed through doubts, fought against the urge to give up, relied on sheer willpower when faith felt thin. This journey requires endurance, doesn't it? A grit, a stubborn refusal to quit. You've mastered the art of putting one foot in front of the other, even when your heart screams for rest. But the wilderness isn't just a test of physical stamina. It's a profound test of the spirit. And the Bible, in its divine wisdom, doesn't simply commend your grit. It calls you to something far more profound, something seemingly impossible in the face of prolonged difficulty. It calls you to endure with joy. The Apostle Paul, writing from a place intimately familiar with hardship, persecution, and endless waiting, speaks of being strengthened with all power, according to His glorious might, for all endurance and patience with joy. Colossians chapter 1, verse 11. This isn't a forced smile, not a pretense that everything is fine when the storm rages. This is something deeper, something supernatural. Where does this joy come from? How do you find cheerfulness on a path strewn with sharp stones and shadowed valleys? It doesn't bubble up from easy circumstances or sudden relief. It flows from a different source entirely. The writer of Hebrews points us to the ultimate example, Jesus Himself. Looking unto Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before Him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Hebrews 12:2. Jesus endured the unimaginable horror of the cross, not just because He had to, but because of a joy set before Him, the joy of our redemption, the joy of fulfilling His Father's will, the joy of His ultimate victory. His suffering was real, agonizing, absolute, yet it was framed by a future joy that fueled His endurance in the present pain. And that's the key for you. Your struggle is not happening in a vacuum. It is not a pointless exercise in masochism. It is part of a larger, divine narrative where God is actively working. He is weaving all things together, the trials, the delays, the heartaches, for your ultimate good and His ultimate glory. Romans 8:28. Your hope is not tied to the shifting sands of your circumstances. It is anchored in the unshakable bedrock of His promises and the finished work of Christ. Knowing this, truly knowing it, allowing it to sink from your head into your heart, shifts your perspective. The present suffering doesn't become less real, but it becomes less final. It becomes a chapter, not the whole story. And within that perspective, a quiet, resilient joy can bloom. This spiritual insight reveals a profound paradox. Joy is not the absence of pain, but the tangible presence of God's strength and perspective in the very midst of the pain. It's like finding a vibrant, resilient flower pushing through the cracked pavement of a difficult season. The pavement is still there, the struggle is real, but life and beauty and strength are emerging nonetheless, powered by something unseen. This joy is not an emotion you conjure up. It is a fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22. It is available to you right now, a gift God longs to pour into your weary soul if you will open yourself to receive it. It's a supernatural strength that transcends your natural capacity to cope. Maybe you felt guilty for not being joyful, like you're failing some spiritual test. Or perhaps the thought of joy feels like a cruel joke when you're battling anxiety, wrestling with loss, or navigating the uncertainty of rejection. But God isn't asking you to fake it. He's inviting you to lean into Him, the source of all true joy. He is calling you to draw strength not from your own depleted reserves, but from His glorious might. It's in the acknowledging of your weakness, the admitting of your exhaustion, that His power can truly flow. He doesn't need you to be strong enough to endure. He needs you to be willing to receive His strength, His patience, and His supernatural joy. This is a quiet call to reflection. Where have you been relying solely on your own endurance? Where have you forgotten the joy set before you, the assurance of God's love, the promise of His faithfulness, the certainty of heaven? Ask God right now to fill you with His supernatural joy for the journey ahead. It's a prayer He delights to answer. Draw strength from His glorious might, which is made perfect in your weakness, and keep pressing forward, not just with grim determination, but with a patient endurance, rooted in the deep, abiding, and inexplicable joy that comes from trusting God always. The path is still long, but you don't walk it alone, and you don't walk it without hope. You walk it held, strengthened, and sustained by a joy that the world cannot give and cannot take away. You've walked through the quiet rooms of waiting, felt the weight of the unseen, and perhaps, in moments of stillness, glimpsed the hidden work of God. The silence that once felt empty is now perhaps tinged with a different kind of presence, a subtle hum of divine activity, a whisper of grace. It felt like a wilderness, barren and stretching endlessly. Yet perhaps, unbeknownst to you, springs were rising in the unseen places. Roots were deepening in the dry earth, drawing strength from a hidden source. The season of waiting was never intended to be an absence of God's love or power, but often a divine invitation into a deeper level of intimacy, or raw, unvarnished trust, forged not in the easy answers that tie everything neatly, but in the enduring questions held loosely in surrendered hands, like a mustard seed of hope planted in uncertain soil. You are not defined by the weight. You are refined by it, polished like a stone tumbled smooth by the river of time. You are not forgotten, lost in the valley of the shadow. You are faithfully held, tethered to the unwavering heart of the Father. Every moment you felt overlooked, every unanswered prayer that echoed back only silence, every weary step of faith taken in the darkness has been seen, known, and meticulously woven into the breathtaking masterpiece God is creating in the intricate tapestry of your life. He was with you in the silence, a lamp unto your feet when you couldn't see the path ahead. He is with you now, a comforting presence closer than your own breath. And He will be with you in the breakthrough that is coming in His perfect, sovereign time. The arrival is beautiful, yes, but your deepest identity is not found in the destination or the outcome. It is found in the journey itself, walking hand in hand with Him. You are a child of God, loved with an everlasting love that preceded time and will outlast eternity. Even when you don't feel it pulsating in your heart, even when you can't see the evidence with your eyes, His presence is the constant, the one unwavering truth in a world of shifting sands and changing seasons. You are anchored in Him, the sure and steadfast hope for your soul. So now, as the melody of this message begins to fade, breathe deeply. Release the white-knuckled grip on the need to understand every twist and turn of the path laid out before you. Lay down the heavy burden of your own timeline, the self-imposed deadlines that only lead to disappointment and anxiety. Rest. Rest in the powerful, capable arms of the One who is sovereign over all things, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the author and finisher of your faith. Even in the deepest quiet, even in the longest wait that seems to stretch into an eternity, His presence is not silent. It sings over you, a symphony of grace composed just for you, a melody of unwavering love that knows no end, a promise whispered on the wind of the Spirit, echoing through the chambers of your heart. I am with you always. He turns hidden seasons into holy stories. They didn't see the end, but they trusted the author, and that was enough.